13. And I warned the fair Yima, saying, O fair Yima, son of Vivanrat, the earth has become full of flocks and herds of men and dogs, and birds, and of red blazing fires, and there is no more room for flocks, herds, and men. 14. Then Yima stepped forward towards the luminous space, southwards to meet the sun, and afterwards he pressed the earth with the golden ring, and bored it with a poniard, speaking thus: O spenta armaete, kindly open asunder and stretch thyself afar, to bear flocks and herds and men. 15. And Yima made the earth grow larger by 2/3 than it was before, and there came flocks and herds and men, at his will and wish, as many as he wished. 26. Thus, under the sway of Yima, 900 winters passed away, and the earth was replenished with flocks and herds, with men and dogs, and birds, with red blazing fires, and there was no more room for flocks, herds, and men. Let us remember that in the Shah Nama, Yima is credited with founding civilization, social order, arts and sciences, and being a first builder. 28. And I warned the fair Yima, saying, O fair Yima, son of Vivangat, the earth has become full of flocks and herds, of men and dogs and birds, and of red blazing fires, and there is no more room for flocks, herds, and men. 31. Then Yima stepped forward towards the luminous space, southwards to meet the sun, and afterwards he pressed the earth with the golden ring, and bored it with a poniard, saying thus: O spenta armaete, kindly open asunder, and stretch thyself far, to make flocks and herds and men. 37. And Yima made the earth grow larger by 3/3 than it was before, and there came flocks and herds and men, at his will and wish, as many as he wished. Rather than the earth getting bigger, perhaps the land under domain getting bigger, but there's got to be some way that this at least represents the discovery of new lands or something. 21 through 43 here is divided into a second section, but I don't think that's inherent in the text. 42. The maker, Ahura Mazda, of high renown, in the Aryana Va'ego, by the good river Da'etya, called together a meeting of the celestial entities. The fair Yima, the good shepherd of high renown, primitive righteousness, shepherd over, but in the Aryana Va'ego, by the good river Da'eta, called together a meeting of excellent mortals. The commentary has Malkosan, which is the plural of the Hebrew Malkos, rain, or is it Malkus? Okay, well, it'd be nice to know the spelling of what they mean. Oh, is it a ah? Is it a Is it a This seems to be an attempt to identify the Iranian legend with the biblical tradition of the deluge. That attempt was both a success and a failure. Malkos entered the Iranian mythology and became naturalized there, but it was mistaken for a proper noun, and became the name of a demon, who by witchcraft will let loose a furious winter on the earth to destroy it, according to Siddhar 9. What may be called the diluvial version of the myth is thus summed up in the Ma'enyo card by him, Gamshed. The enclosure of Jamkard was made when there is that reign of Malkasan, as it is declared in the region, that mankind and the remaining creatures and creations of Hormizd, the Lord, will mostly perish, and they will open the gate of that enclosure of Jamkard, and men and cattle, and the remaining creatures, and a creation of the crater Hormizd will come from that enclosure and arrange the world again. We're still continuing 42, which is really 40, which is 21 in the normal numbering. To that meeting came Ahura Mazda of high renown and the Ariana Va'ago. By the good river Da Itya, he came together with the celestial entities. You know, the whole shining thing, the Devi, to that meeting came the fair Yima, the good shepherd, of high renown, and the Ariana Va'ago. By the good river Da'itya, he came together with the excellent mortals. 46. And Ahura Mazda spake unto Yima, saying, O fair Yima, son of Vivangvat, upon the material world the fatal winters are going to fall, that should bring the fierce foul frost upon the material world. The fatal winters are going to fall, that shall make snowflakes fall thick, even an Ardvi deep, on the highest tops of mountains. So even when where the snow is the least, it will be 1 vitasti, 2 fingers deep. So maybe 14 fingers deep, I guess, is the measurement they list. 52. And all 3 sorts of beasts shall perish, those that live in the wilderness, and those that live on the top of mountains, and those that live in the bosom of the dale, under the shelter of staples. 57. Before that winter those fields would bear plenty of grass for cattle. Now with floods that stream, with snows that melt, it will seem a happy land in the world, the land wherein footprints, even of sheep, may still be seen. And so we have an enclosure is the literal translation. This Vara is later known as Var Gamkard, the Var made by Yima. 61. And therefore make the Avara long as a riding ground on every side of the square, and thither bring the seeds of sheep and oxen, of men, of dogs, of birds, and of red blazing fires. Therefore make the Avara long as a riding ground on every side of the square, to be an abode for men. Avara long as a riding ground on every side of the square, to be a fold for flocks. So 2 hathras long on every side. A hathra is about an English mile. The last 3 words, apax lagamena, is of doubtful meaning. And 65. There thou shalt make the waters flow in a bed a hatra long. There thou shalt settle birds by the evergreen banks that bear never failing food. There thou shalt establish a dwelling places consisting of a house with a balcony, a courtyard, and a gallery. You have to be sown on the ground and grow up with a little life in due time. 70. Thither thou shalt bring the seeds of men and women, of the greatest, best, and finest kinds on this earth. Thither thou shalt bring the seeds of every kind of cattle, of the greatest, best, and finest kinds on the earth. 74. Thither thou shalt bring the seeds of every kind of tree, of the greatest, the best, and finest kinds on this earth. Thither thou shalt bring the seeds of every kind of fruit, the fullest of food, and sweetest of odor. All those seeds thou shalt bring, two of every kind, to be kept inexhaustible there, so long as those men shall stay in the Vara. 80. There shall be no humpbacked, none bulged forward there, no impotent, no lunatic, no poverty, no lying, no meanness, no jealousy, nor decayed tooth, no leprous to be confined, nor any of the brands wherewith Angra Maenu stamps the bodies of mortals. So we have an early mention to the whole devil's mark thing. 87. In the largest part of the place thou shalt make 9 streets, 6 in the middle, 3 in the smallest. To the streets of the largest part thou shalt bring 1,000 seeds of men and women. To the streets of the middle part 600. To the streets of the smallest part 300. That Vara thou shalt seal up with the golden ring, and thou shalt make a door and a window, self-shining within. Okay, to 87 or 30 we have, and the Shah Nama. Gamshed teaches the Devs to make and knead clay, and they build palaces at his bidding. It was his renown, both as a wise king and a great builder, that caused the Muslimin to identify him with Solomon. See, that someone was commenting on my channel. It's like, what you're talking about isn't claimed to be revelation. It's not claimed to be inspiration. So you're making a big deal about commentary that doesn't accept the literal value of the text. You really have no grounds to criticize such and such religion, at least in that respect. 93. Then Yima said within himself, how shall I manage to make that Vara which Ahura Mazda has commanded me to make? And Ahura Mazda said unto Yima, O fair Yima, son of Vivangat, crush the earth with the stamp of thy heel, and then knead it with thy hands, as the potter does when kneading the potter's clay. 32. And Yima did as Ahura Mazda wished. He crushed the earth with the stamp of his heel. He kneaded it with his hands, as the potter does when kneading the potter's clay. 97. And Yima made a Vara, long as a riding ground on every side of the square, and he brought the seeds of sheep and oxen, of men, of dogs, of birds, and of red blazing fires. He made a Vara, long as a riding ground on every side of the square, to be an abode for men. A Vara, long as a riding ground on every side of the square, to be a fold for flocks. 101. There he made waters flow in a bed a hathroit long. There he settled birds by the evergreen banks that bear never failing food. There he established dwelling places, consisting of a house with a balcony, a courtyard, and a gallery. 106. There he brought the seeds of men and women, of the greatest, best, and finest kinds, on this earth. There he brought the seeds of every kind of cattle, of the greatest, best, and finest kinds, on this earth. 110. There he brought the seeds of every kind of tree, of the greatest, best, and finest kinds on this earth. There he brought the seeds of every kind of fruit, the fullest of food and sweetest of odor. All those seeds he brought, too, of every kind, to be kept inexhaustible there, so long as those men shall stay in the Vara. 116. And there were no humpbacked, none bulged forward there, no impotent, no lunatic, no lying, no meanness, no jealousy, no decayed tooth, no leprous to be confined, nor any of the brands wherewith Ingra Ma'inu stamps the bodies of mortals. Now, could these brands be like demon sigil technology or something? 123. In the largest part of the place he made 9 streets, 6 in the middle part, 3 in the smallest. To the streets of the largest part he brought 1,000 steeds of men and women. To the streets of the middle part 600. To the streets of the smallest part 300. That Vara he sealed up with the golden ring, and he made a door and a window, self-shining within. 129. O Maker of the material world, thou Holy One, what lights are there to give light in the Vara which Yima made? Heavenly lights and material lights. The commentary here has the following Zend quotation. All uncreated light shines from above, all the created lights shine from below. We give here the description of Ivran Beg according to a latter source. The Ma'inyo e Card, as translated by West, says, Hormezd created Erebez, better than the remaining places and districts, and its goodness was this, that men's life is 300 years, and cattle and sheep 150 years, and their pain and sickness are little, and they do not circulate falsehood, and they make no lamentation of weeping, and the sovereignty of the demon avarice, and their body is little, and in 10 men, if they eat 1 loaf, they are satisfied, and in every 40 years, from 1 woman and 1 man, 1 child is born, and their law is goodness, and religion is the primeval religion, and when they die, they are righteous, blessed, and their chief is Gopacha, and the ruler and king is Shrosh, the obedience archangel. And remember, in the Bible, isn't there this word that, its literal meaning is whatever, but there's something of a particular size in the thing. And window doesn't quite make sense considering the situation. 131. Ahura Mazda answered, there are uncreated lights and created lights. There are stars, the moon and the sun are only once seen to rise and set, and a year seems only as a day. From the seeds deposited in the Vara, in the same way as the first human couple grew up. After 40 years in the shape of ribes shrub, from the seed of Gayomard receives by Spenta Armaete, of their 33. Every 40th year, to every couple, 2 are born, a male and a female. And thus it is for every sort of cattle, and the men in the Vara, which Yima made, live the happiest life. They live there for 150 years. Some say they never die. The latter are right to say are nearer to mythical truth, as the inhabitants of Vara were primitively the departed and therefore immortal. The bird Karshipta dwells in the heavens. Were he living on the earth, he would be the king of birds. He brought the law into the Vara of Yima, and recites the Avesta in the language of the birds, according to Vendidad 19 and 24. As the bird because of the swiftness of his flight, was often considered an incarnation of lightning, and as the thunder was supposed to be the voice of a god speaking from above, the song of the bird was often thought to be the utterances of a god and revelation. Well, certain experiences are revelatory. Let's not deny that fact, even if the entity is not a deity quoting a god. 137. O Maker of the material world, thou Holy One, who is he who brought the law of Mazda and the Vara which Yima made? Ahura Mazda answered, it was the bird Karshipta. O Holy Zarathustra. 140. O Maker of the material world, thou Holy One, who is the Lord and ruler there? Ahura Mazda answered, Urvatad Nara, O Zarathustra, and thyself, Zarathustra. Well, whatever our experience, it comes through us. So whoever is being addressed, isn't that the idea that we are, in a way, a lord and master, lowercase and maybe secondary or whatever, but still. Zarathustra had 3 sons during his lifetime: Isad, Vastra, Avarakithra, and Rivatad Nara, who were respectively the fathers and chiefs of the 3 classes: priests, warriors, and husbandmen. They play no great part in Mazdian mythology and are little more than 3 subdivisions of Zarathustra himself, who was the first priest, the first warrior, the first husbandman. According to Yash 1388. Zarathustra, as a heavenly priest, was, by right, the Ratu in the Aryana Vego, where he founded the religion by a sacrifice. Zarathustra had 3 sons during his lifetime: Isadvastra, Havarakithra, and Rivatadnara, who were respectively the fathers and the... they're listing this twice. Okay. Yeah, they're list Bundahist 33, and yeah.